Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Buddhaṃ saranang gacchāmi, Dhammaṃ saranang gacchāmi, Sanghaṃ saranang gacchāmi. Dutiyampi Buddhaṃ saranang gacchāmi, Dutiyampi Dhammaṃ saranang gacchāmi, Dutiyampi Sanghaṃ saranang gacchāmi. Tatiyampi Buddhaṃ saranang gacchāmi, Tatiyampi Dhammaṃ saranang gacchāmi, Tatiyampi Sanghaṃ saranang gacchāmi. So I hope that everybody's keeping well wherever might be. And was chatting a little bit with somebody the other day, and we were chatting a little bit about control. So this person been practicing meditation, and it was a nice conversation. They were chatting a bit about how they could perceive themselves as a good person, but that sometimes these kind of thoughts of jealousy or whatever it might be arose, and they felt very upset about that. It was kind of somebody who just started to meditate. So one of the interesting things that we were discussing is that, you know, the Buddha gives this teaching on paticca samuppada. And paticca samuppada is about the causes that lead to other things to arise. And basically, that everything arises according to a cause and condition. And these things that arise according to causes and conditions, we can manipulate them to a certain extent. And there's a certain extent where they have a tipping point, a tipping point, a tipping point, and we can't manipulate them anymore. So when a person has a contact, they have this kind of contact at the mind. There's a pleasant feeling arises, and they recognize it. There's kind of contact there. And or something happens, say, like, it's a better way to put it. Something happens, like you give a gift to somebody and you feel good. You give a gift, there's this contact. You give this gift to this person, and you kind of have this experience where there's contact. You're giving the gift, you perceive you're giving the gift, and you have this pleasant feeling arise based on this contact. And from this feeling, you get clinging. And from clinging, you get craving. From the feeling, you get craving. From craving, you get clinging. And clinging, you get becoming. So when one thinks about these things in this way, what it basically means is that whatever it is that arises for us, it's kind of wherever we have this kind of contact, then we're creating a sense of becoming around things that we like. And this is where it becomes a little bit difficult. Because oftentimes, whenever it is that a person contacts, they have this kind of contact, they go for a walk in the woods, they see a beautiful view. A person, talks to a friend that they like and they have a pleasant feeling. Or a person gives a gift, they have a pleasant feeling. Or a person successfully completes some report at their business or makes a sale or whatever it might be. They make a lot of money somehow. They have a contact from that. From this contact, they have craving. From craving, they have clinging. Clinging, they have becoming. Now, this becoming, it's often a sense of what a person is, like how they perceive themselves. That's not maybe the only way that it can manifest, but it can be this sense, I'm a good person. I'm a person who can make a lot of money. Actually, if you went back to visit Canada, I was talking to some people who I've known since childhood who were not Buddhists, and it was just all about, like, a lot of it was about how much money they were making, or how much money their friends were making, or how big their friends' houses were. So you kind of have this kind of contact where you make money, you build up a sense that I'm a person who can make money. Now, the interesting thing, one of the things about these things is that these external things to a person, they can manipulate them to a certain extent. And this is why it's very tempting, whenever a person can manipulate something to a certain extent, to think that they own it. To think it's theirs, to think it's their self. I was watching a video not long ago about body language, human body language. And they were showing these videos of babies interacting with their mothers. When you look at babies, their limbs are very small and their hands are, they're not fully formed. They can't really do much with them. You can just kind of do this. And so when you're a baby, you come into the world with a human body, a human brain, and perceptions that are based on all these organs that are in the body. So based on these, you learn that you can manipulate things to a certain extent. You can manipulate your hand, you can manipulate your feet, and with these things you can manipulate the external world. So a person's perceptions of what they own often start with the body. It's kind of, oh, I can move this hand, it's mine. I can move this foot, it's mine. Or move the body, I can move my body. One can think, I can move my body, it's mine. And also the law recognizes this. There's, of course, reasonableness to the law recognizing this. But in terms of the perceptions that a person cultivates around what causes them to suffer, is they think of these things as if they're going to be able to use them the way they like for a particular period into the future. I'm going to be 60, I'm going to do this. I'm 50, I'm going to do this. I'm going to have these types of perceptions. I'm this type of person. I'll be this way in the future. I've been this way in the past. This is the way people think. And when a person thinks this way, when they learn to manipulate things in a particular way in this way, there's this delight from the manipulation. There's a delight from the result that they get. And it's actually when they have this delight, it's when this delight happens, that often unwittingly in just a moments, mind moments or whatever it might be, very fast, we create this sense of self that's reinforced again and again, again and again, and then again and again through various perceptions that a person has. Now, so long as things are going the way that we like, we're happy. We're happy enough with that. As long as these perceptions that we've created around who we are and what we can do are not challenged. But the tricky thing is that these things get challenged all the time. And this is where suffering comes in. We think we're a good person and a thought of jealousy arises. We think we're a good person, a thought of hatred arises. And all of a sudden, this idea that we're a good person gets shattered. So I was reading this sutta the other day. I listened to a Dhamma talk a while ago and it was all about how one can meditate on feelings by watching them, basically watching the perceptions at contact. And what was the contact that led to this feeling? It was a really nice talk. So I went and looked through, and there's a sutta that I'd read before in the canon. And the Buddha basically says, that a person is a superior person if he transcends the seamstress. He doesn't get stuck basically in the beginning. He basically doesn't get more or less. He doesn't get stuck in the beginning or the end or the middle. When you don't get stuck in the beginning, the end, or the middle, you're called somebody who's transcended the seamstress. And this is just a paraphrase, obviously. So different monks get together and they're talking about what they think the beginning, the middle, and the end are, and what the seamstress is. And one says, pleasant feeling is the beginning, painful feeling is the end, neutral feeling is the middle. The seamstress is basically craving that puts them all together. Anyways, they all have their different ideas. And one monk says, contact. Contact is the beginning. The arising of contact is the middle. The cessation, or the end, the cessation of contact is the middle. And its craving is a seamstress that puts them all together. And the Buddha says, well, in a way you're all right, but what he's basically specifically referring to, they were talking about a phrase from a sutta that he'd given, was the one about contact. That basically there's the arising of contact. One end is contact, another end is the arising of contact, and the middle is the cessation of contact. And craving is a seamstress that puts all these things together. So there's many different ways that one can approach meditation and approach the perceptions that one cultivates to try to reduce the amount of suffering and eliminate it in one's life. This is one of them. And kind of looking at things through the lens of contact. What happened when I had this contact? What did I do after that? What did I build up after that? And this is where the discussion I was having with this young woman turned to. So what are we doing to build a sense that we have this self? And does it match with reality? So wherever there's this contact, there's going to be this feeling. There's this feeling, there's this craving, clinging, becoming. A lot of this happens at contact. When we have a pleasant contact, we like it. We have an unpleasant contact, we don't like it. We don't want to build up a sense of self around that. But we can't always control the contacts that we have. And these these things are coming at any time. And its craving is the seamstress that binds them all together. Binds them all together and can create a sense of who we are and what we can do that we project into a future that's completely uncertain, but that we think should happen. Intellectually, you can say this to people, these things are uncertain, but they're actually creating these perceptions all the time throughout the day. Look at this, and what am I going to do tomorrow, the day after? What am I going to do in the future? What did I do in the past? These things come very, very fast. Every time there's a contact with something, there's this liking, there's this disliking. There's a feeling that arises based on that. So when one turns one's mind to contemplate in this way, and contemplate dependent co-arising in this way, on the basis of contact, one starts to try to develop dispassion for contact itself. There's another very graphic sutta in the Samyutta Nikaya where the Buddha compares contact to a flayed cow. Where a cow has been flayed and its skin is in tatters. And if it stands near a wall, the creatures in the wall eat it. Wherever it stands, if it goes to sit on the earth, the creatures in the earth eat it. They bite its flesh. And he says this is the way that contact should be seen. So the Buddhist path that he teaches to the end of suffering is one that's said to be neither bright nor dark. It's one that leads to dispassion. So there's these two ends. There's one end is contact. Another end, the arising of contact. The middle, the cessation of contact. And the seamstress is craving that sews them all together. So to transcend the seamstress, one needs to have dispassion for these things. And dispassion for the feelings that arise in one's mind. Dispassion for the things that one controls. Because although we can control them to a certain extent, there's always this tipping point. There's always this limit where we can't control them. The biggest one that's always in the background that one doesn't think about, you see these little babies grasping, learning to clutch, learning to walk, learning to talk, learning to think, learning to look around. It's all based on having a body. And in this body is a time bomb. The body is going to deteriorate after a certain point. It just starts to gradually deteriorate, and there's nothing that one can do to stop it. It's built into the nature of the body. So contemplating in this way, one can learn to see the danger in the feelings that one likes arising based on contact. I'm a good person. Well, I think we're a good person. We're going to suffer when something to the opposite happens. I'm a person who can really run around the track fast. I'm a person who can really make money. Well, what happens when the opposite happens? It's going to happen. We can't stop it. Our ability to do all these things is based on the body. It doesn't belong to us. It's going to deteriorate. And with it, everything that we love. So the wise person for this reason, what the Buddha calls a superior person, is the one who transcends the seamstress, who doesn't get stuck in both ends, doesn't get stuck in the middle, doesn't get stuck with contact, doesn't get stuck with the arising of contact, doesn't get stuck with the cessation, and transcends the seamstress, which is craving. There's many different ways that the Buddha gives to perceive phenomenon for the sake of developing dispassion, and this is one of them. We can look at paticca samuppada, look at the things that arise in our life and perceive them through this lens of contact, to see what it is that we're doing to create a sense of who we are, and to view it properly. Whatever we create is going to be subject to falling away. See both of these things as they're connected. The arising of the pleasant feeling with the arising of the painful feeling. The arising of gain with the arising of loss. And the arising of pleasure with the arising of pain. You don't get one without the other. So this path that is neither bright nor dark, this path that transcends the seamstress, is one that learns to see these things clearly, because we're building a million perceptions every day. So we can turn this on its head and learn to build the perceptions that lead to dispassion. Learn to build the perceptions that ask the right questions. Why is it that I'm suffering, and what am I doing to cause it? What kind of sense of self am I creating here? It's in this way that one can work towards becoming what the Buddha calls a superior person. One who doesn't get stuck in one end, one doesn't get stuck in the other, one doesn't get stuck in the middle, one who transcends contact, one who transcends craving, and one who makes a right ending to suffering. Okay, so I think leave that for reflection, and wishing everybody all the blessings of Dhamma practice.